Welcome back to Along This Spiritual Journey. So, practicing emotional and spiritual flexibility allows you the gift of not taking things so personally. One of the best things that I have learned and gained through this experience of spirituality is knowing that anything that I engage with is only I'm going to say the replication of another's emotions or thoughts. No matter what book it is, no matter how much research goes behind it, no matter what branding is placed around it, it is another human being's experience, their observation that's been recorded, and now I get to experience it and decide if I want to retain that information, use that information, or dismiss it, right? Emotional flexibility allows you to go into rooms that you may not have experienced before and allows you the space to say, okay, I can be flexible enough to now make space to try something new. Because if you don't make space, then the opposite is just being rigid. And now you're confining something and not letting things in. So then you walk into this new space, you've already predetermined what it is, and you've set all these things against it, thinking that you already know, but you're really not allowing yourself to be flexible in that experience. The reason that this is important is because this is the part of emotional intelligence that I talk about. When we talk about reading a room, and they say a lot of people don't know how to read the room because they're so focused on either what they've been taught or dismissing what they don't know versus being open and flexible to what they've been taught, but also trying to say, you know what, I don't know what I don't know, so maybe I should give this a chance. This experience of emotional flexibility starts when we're kids, right? We start learning how to be around those who can experience us at our worst and at our best. And then we decide if we want to be around these people. This is how we pick our favorites, right? Oh, I love Nana. She's the best. Why? Because Nana lets you do what you want, or Nana loves you a certain way that you're not getting. So this is why we become more flexible to Nana's love versus when we're at home with our parents who are a lot more strict and they have more confinement. So then we don't feel that expansion of growth to open up. And so then we shut down and close down in certain situations. And so this is where we learn that emotional rigidity, whatever, the word I'm trying to use. You become rigid in how you respond to people and you don't want to let anything in. So for me, emotional flexibility and spiritual flexibility is about simply listening. You don't have to agree. You don't have to disagree. That's one of the first things I've learned about retaining information is that you don't have to agree with it nor disagree with it. Simply knowing it is enough. Right? That's all information is. Some people take in information and think they have to agree with it or side with it. And if that's what you do, then that's when you start recognizing when people start falling into subcultures and getting stuck into this idea and ideology of what something should be versus being flexible to what they need and desire for their growth. Remember, we are all organisms. So we're going to require different types of nutrients and things that come to us to help us thrive and feel like we can expand. So emotional understanding of how we receive information and spiritual understanding of how we then break said information down is how I believe most of us get to what we call logical reasoning. The process of thinking is logical, but to get to a practical decision means that you're flexible enough to be open enough to what's being presented to you. Logic to me is not rigid, and unfortunately, logical thinking people get lumped in with rigid people because in a way they're one and the same, because rigid people feel like, well, this is tried and true, so I'm going to stick to it until you prove it otherwise wrong. Logical people say, well, it's tried and true, but there's other options or opportunities for expansion, right? An emotional person would say, I don't care what you say. I don't need to know anything. My parents said this. My grandma said this. My family does this. And that's all that matters to them is their emotional truth versus someone who's emotional intelligent and say, well, I was raised in a house like this and I understand that this is what I believe, but there could be other possibilities of doing things out there. Maybe I should be open to it and try. That's all emotional and spiritual flexibility is about. Remember, when you read a book, you're by yourself, so you can't really get upset at someone else if you're reading a book and it's their opinion. In that moment, that is a one-on-one exchange for you to ask yourself if you want to grow. If you read something and you get upset and then you go out of your way to go into the physical world and try to disrupt somebody's money or life because you don't agree with them, then you're inflexible. You know what I mean? You're not in a space of being spiritually open. You're not willing to receive, which is why people feel closed off sometimes, right? Remember, when you're reading something, that is a spiritual moment because it's all in the ethers. Someone took that from their head, put it on physical paper. You're reading those words, those letters, those phonetics that we then put into syntax, make a sentence, make a phrase, make a paragraph, and we call it thought, right? We call it whatever we want to say is our type of intelligence for us to understand the mumbles and vibrations that come from our bodies. So when you read something, it's a spiritual moment to say and question and ask, how do I feel about that? What do I think? Do I agree? Do I disagree? Do I have to agree or disagree? These are all normal and reasonable questions to ask. But this is how you start flexing that emotional muscle. This is how you start utilizing what we talk about. We hear emotional intelligence and all these phrases. It's not just being able to be aware and recognizing emotions. It's knowing how to actually integrate them into your own experience and then explain them in a way that they don't take over your experience, right? Because you can get really excited in a moment, but that excitement could also ruin that moment. So it's important to know how to talk to yourself and clarify, like, this is something that I want to experience. This is something that I trust. And then you open up more to it. You become more flexible to it. Versus if you're like, this is something I don't want to experience, I don't want to let this in, you become more rigid. You become more closed off. So this is where you have to remember, if you do become more closed off, you're probably going to take it a little bit more personally. Versus if you're a little more open to it, you don't take it as personally because you're like, I know that it has other factors for why it is what it is, so it doesn't bother me. It doesn't upset me. So I'm not going to go that deep into it. Even if you know that it's something that someone is trying to do to excite, ignite, or get you upset. If you know that you have emotional flexibility and spiritual flexibility, water off a duck's back. You don't care. It literally just falls right off, and it means nothing to you because you know that there's more to it out there than what's being presented. If your world is only built on rigid structures and beliefs, then anytime somebody comes along with any type of new belief for you to receive, it's going to either fracture your foundation or crack something, do something that you feel uncomfortable. And that's where you have these tower moments where people feel like my whole world and identity is falling apart, which is not true. It just means you're expanding to start something new. Now, if you never give yourself any nutrients, which is what I said, the exercises of trying new things, being open to consider other people's emotions and feelings, but doesn't mean you have to take them on or always believe in them, but understand that through empathy. These are things that, again, exercise your muscles, exercise their energy inside of you that allows you to receive and give back, right? So then when you do encounter something that would make you normally shut off, when you relax, you have space to expand and you realize you're not in danger. Versus someone who didn't do that, they have nowhere to expand and everything feels like an attack and they fall apart instantly. This is why I say learning how to be emotionally flexible and spiritually flexible allows you to not take things personally. So practice exercising your discernment. That is the key to all of this. Discernment is important because it allows you to say there is truth in all and there's lies in all. You have to find that middle space. You have to bridge them together, come from those ends of polarity and find the duality and all so that you can balance it out and make sense for you. Okay? Hope that makes sense. Love ya. Mwah.